Hello, thanks for joining me today. Astrologer Patrick Arundell. I'm here down the glorious River Severn, so I'm going to call myself the Severn Sorcerer today, and I'm going to talk about Jessica Mulroney's situation. It's not that I'm particularly fascinated by celebrities, but all astrologers are really gripped by people's personalities, and that's what draws us to this work. And so what I want to do is just show you how current events have impacted in her particular situation. As far as I can tell, I don't have a time, but there's a lot of information there that I can share with you, which is utterly fascinating. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to take you through the process, a bit like I would do with a client. It's just going to be a quick 10-minute celebrity special on Jessica Mulroney, so please stay with me. Hello, thanks for joining me back at HQ Astral Towers. So here's the plan again, a 10-minute celebrity special on Jessica Mulroney, the so-called best friend of Meghan Markle. Why am I taking an interest in this? Because I read, whether this quote happened or not, I don't know, but I read that Jessica Mulroney said to someone called Sasha Exeter, an important influencer, "I have spoken to people and companies about the way you have treated me unfairly. You think your voice matters." And what came up for me was power, and that's what interested me. And then of course there's been a massive fallout from this. Now we don't have Jessica Mulroney's time of birth, so I can only give you a brief synopsis. I'm not doing a chart rectification from scratch, where I take a lot of time to work out what I think Jessica Mulroney's ascendant is. I just want to give you a flavour of how astrologers work to use information from a natal chart and then take it forwards into the present and see how that's influencing on current events. If you're new to my channel, I'd be honoured if you would subscribe. Or you can chat with me directly on Twitter at Horoscope Ace. It'd be great to have you along. Or please join Elisa and I for your Daily Astrology and Tarot video show, which is proving great fun, really popular. You can click on the playlist beneath this video. Please join us every day and grab your free daily horoscope. So that's the context. So what do we have on screen at the present time? Well, on the day that Jessica Mulroney was born, the 14th of March 1980, the moon moved through two zodiac signs, and until 8:11 p.m. was in the sign of Aquarius. Then it moved into the sign of Pisces. Now the chart that I've got on screen at the moment is for 8:12 p.m. and you can see the moon has just gone into Pisces. But whether the moon is in Aquarius that day or Pisces, the midpoint between the moon and the sun in Pisces is definitely Pisces. So this is a person with a Pisces kind of instinct. And because Jupiter and Neptune are the two ruling planets of Pisces, people of this sign often have a real instinct for trends, a sixth sense. And I understand that Jessica Mulroney was a stylist on the set of a TV show called Suits, which is where she met Meghan Markle, but also she's involved in marketing and PR and has quite a high profile. Now, it's said that she comes from a quite wealthy family. Her father was a manufacturer and distributor of shoes, and her husband is related to a previous Prime Minister of Canada. So this is someone who's used to being around influence. So what does her chart tell us about her? Whether she was born before 8:11 p.m. in the day and has that Aquarius moon, or after and has the Pisces moon, remember the joint energy between the moon and the sun means that she's a Pisces instinctively, not just the sun. Well, what I can tell you is that Jessica's sun is at 24 degrees in Pisces. It varies slightly if we go to a midday view of the chart, but there is a fixed star that's right on Jessica's sun. It's called Markle, and this can endow honours and riches on people. So that's good, isn't it? When you're moving in such influential circles. but this is also known as the star of sorrow. And also, it can lead to legal problems, which is interesting for someone from such a gilded background, because look at where Saturn is when she was born. She had Saturn opposite the Sun. Now, as I say, we don't know the time of birth, so we won't know the ascendant. In this chart, it's saying that Pluto's on the ascendant. Maybe this chart is about right. You know, she's a powerful person, and they're both in the sign of Libra. And I'm going to come back to that later because that's quite fascinating. But this Saturn means that this is a person that when she speaks likes to be heard, because Saturn is very much about authority. It's also about old influence, traditional power. But the sign of Pisces can be very creative. And the midpoint, on whether the midday chart or this 8:12 p.m. chart, forges a conjunction with Mercury, which of course is not at its best in Pisces, but they're forging a beautiful sextile to Venus, which is in its dignity in the sign of Taurus. That's very much about fashion, style, trends. Pisces people have an instinctive understanding of a lot of this kind of stuff. So that's fascinating. What else? Quickly from this chart. Well, Mars, the planet of drive and determination, but also ego manifestation, is conjunct to a north node in the sign of Leo. Now in this chart, in the 10th house, do you know, it really wouldn't be a surprise if this chart was about right, because Mars in Leo gives people a great desire to do something creative, whether it's to do with theatre, whether it's to do with bands, music, performance. It could be working in your local sort of amateur dramatic group, or it could be someone who always wanted to be in the spotlight, always felt that they deserved stardom. But having it conjunct the North Node, and if this 10th house is right, it really does sort of make a lot of sense, because this is someone who is kind of quite assertively saying that I count, that my voice should be heard. And it could make a person with Mars conjunct the North Node really maybe a little bit defensive at times. If someone challenges them, they may take it quite personally. Just saying. But if we look on the other side of the heavens, we get a much bigger clue, because the moon, whether it's in this chart at 0 degrees in Pisces, or in the midday chart when it's at 24 degrees in Aquarius, the moon is opposite Mars. Now Mars is about force, drive, ego. The moon is about hearing, sensitivity, relating, being much more nurturing. Apparently, again, I can only report this in a journalistic way, it's said that Meghan Markle feels that Jessica Mulroney has been tone deaf in her response to Sasha Exeter. Now, someone whose Mars opposite moon is someone who may not always get the emotional nuances of situations, because their drive is dominating, particularly when Mars is in the sign of Leo, and particularly when it's conjunct the North Node. But there's something else here. Incredible this is. Regulus is another fixed star, and Regulus is known as the royal star, and it can be known as the kingmaker. How about that? Mars, all about our desire to be heard and recognised in Leo. It's so desirous of recognition here. It's also in the third decan of Leo, so it has a Mars energy to it, and so it's kind of a double Mars energy, conjunct the North Node, conjunct Regulus. That's incredible. But guess what? With Regulus, you can have a sudden downfall. Yes, things can go from being the king, queen maker to nothing. Incredible. So what else have we got? Well, I think looking at this chart, there is a right angle between Uranus and Mars, and also the North Node, and therefore that's a T-square down to here. Now it's a fixed T-square if the moon is in Aquarius, which would make this person a bit inflexible. I've got a feeling that her moon is in Pisces somehow, don't know why, But either way, the square is still there between Uranus and the moon. This is someone who can be quite rebellious, wants to do things their own way, and squares up with Mars. Now, I've got a feeling that Meghan Markle's Mars in Cancer squares with Uranus. I might be wrong about that, but I think that's true. So that's a very important thing. But if we look at where Arundell is, and this is a kind of primitive female energy, so great for anyone involved in fashion, but this can lead to violence and sudden failures. It's supposed to be profoundly unfortunate. So we've got a fixed grand cross on the midday chart between Argyle, Uranus, Mars, North Node, Regulus, and the Moon, but particularly in Aquarius. Just saying. Now, when Jessica Mulroney's birthday came round on the 14th of March, what did her solar return say? Well, let's have a quick look, because when I tell you this, you're just going to be fascinated. So a solar return occurred, and you can see that when it did, the midpoint between the Sun and where the Moon was on that day, which was 3 degrees in Sagittarius, this is the 8:12 p.m. chart, the midpoint was at 29 degrees Capricorn. But look where Saturn was. It's just unbelievable. So this is a birthday return, and the midpoint between the Sun and the Moon is conjunct Saturn. And if that time's right, that's in the 7th house of relationships, or about right. Let's look at the solar return on the midday chart. It's not much different. It's at 26 degrees Capricorn. The Moon is actually just in Scorpio, and the Sun still in Pisces at 24, but the midpoint is just 3 degrees from Saturn, but in the 12th house of secret enemies. And also, it's very close to Pluto, which is to do with death and destruction. Fascinating. So that's the solar returns. Now, because I'm just using a little bit of astrological nous here, I've done a quad wheel here, and this is based on the 8:12 time, because I kind of feel that it is, even if she is Aquarius, it's late in Aquarius where her moon's located. So just a quick run through of what a quad wheel is about. So the middle wheel is the nativity, what she was born with, and you can see what I was just talking about. The Moon is opposite the North Node and Mars. She's got Uranus, which is square Mars, square the Moon, even though it's 5 degrees. It's a 5-degree square. That's someone who's very much a freedom lover, likes to do what they want, and she's got the Sun opposite Saturn when she was born. Now, the second wheel is her natural progressions. Now, one of the things I look at with clients, and all astrologers would be the same, would be the secondary progressed ascendant. And this has kind of got less value because we don't know the time. It's only an approximation. But let's just say the time was about right. Her ascendant at the moment is 17 degrees in Scorpio. So just saying that for the present time. But what we can tell in progressed chart is where the Sun is. And the Sun's at 4 degrees in Taurus. Now the third chart you can see here is her directions. And that's where we turn her wheel around 40 degrees from the day of her birth. Well, it's about getting on for 40 and a half now, isn't it? And this only works on the 8th harmonic. So we only take into account the opposition squares and conjunctions. We don't take into account the good stuff. So what's this telling us? The outer wheel is the moving planets in Toronto, where she now resides. I was able to absolutely nail that, even though I can't be absolutely sure she was born in Montreal, but I think she was. So what this is showing is that in her progressed chart, based on this time, the Moon is at 28 degrees in Leo. So that means 12, 24, 30 for the last 28 months. So So 12, 24, 2.5, just under 2.5 years. So 2.4 years, the moon has been working its way through a progress chart in Leo, which of course is all about fashion, it's all about style, it's about passion, it's about warmth, it's about a high vibration of energy. It's ruled by the sun. So the moon's been there. Her voice has been heard big time over the last just under 2.5 years. And in 2 months' time, it's going to move into the sign of Virgo. But I think this is going to be a complete change in this person's life. You don't have to be, a skilled follower of royal affairs to know that this is a very serious situation based on this chart alone, because this moon is conjunct Mars, the North Node, if it is right that it's the 10th house of prominence, but it's also exactly conjunct Regulus, sudden downfalls. It's incredible. But also, if we look at where her Uranus is when she was born, it was actually in retrograde. So it's only gone back 1 degree in her progress chart, but that's squaring up to this Uranus, but it's also to the Mars position, which it was when she was born, of course, because Mars is actually inverted back a couple of degrees, but it's still square. It's inverted back 1 degree, but Uranus is also squaring that progressed moon. So that's fascinating. So she's got the moon in her progress chart opposite the moon in her natal chart. So basically, she's at the halfway point of the 29.5 year cycle that the moon goes through. So she's at a moon opposite moon point. But the critical thing for her is, because this chart, this progress chart, puts her midheaven right conjunct this moon, conjunct this Mars, conjunct this node, conjunct Regulus. And even in the directed chart, the midheaven is conjunct them as well. It's extraordinary. She's also, when she was born, she had Jupiter opposite the moon, which is actually a very warm, very generous, spirited influence. But the midheaven, the move in midheaven, the progressed midheaven, if this time is about right, is about to come onto her Jupiter. A colleague of mine was only saying on his Twitter this week that Jupiter can be overrated for fortune. Well, I think you may have a point. And so Mercury here is really about the whole issue of, the midheaven with Jupiter here is the whole issue of exaggeration, or perhaps grandiose ideas, or thinking we're above our station. No one's above being a decent human being. As the great manager of Liverpool Football Club used to say quite regularly, it's nice to be important, but important to be nice. And all the unrest that's going on at the moment, to me, is more about a lack of respect for the reality of some people's lives. And some people who are in very privileged positions don't see the reality of some people's lives. That's all I'm going to say. So we have a situation too where this cluster of energy in Leo is also in a right angle to Argyle, that profoundly potentially unfortunate fixed star. And also because when she was born, she had Saturn opposite her sun, so she's had to work very hard for what she's done. She won't feel she's had it on a plate at all. She may have actually in some ways eschewed some of the privileged background that she's had, really rolled her sleeves up and got stuck in to create her own wealth and situation. But we do have in the moving heavens, the outer wheel, Mars conjunct her natal and progressed Saturn. That's very restrictive, explosively so. We also have Neptune conjunct Mars, which has a lot to do with the mischief that's been going on in the heavens in terms of pushing scandals, because Mars in Pisces is very subterranean, and it's been pushing scandals since the 24th of May, as Mars is broadly squared with the Sun. It's been pushing scandals, and unfair situations into the open. Simmering frustrations have poured over her into the open. But she's also got the moving moon opposite her Saturn too. Her natal Saturn by 3 degrees. So I did this chart for in her time at 9:30 this morning for Toronto, even though I'm recording it a little bit later. Because when I got up this morning, I was just gripped with looking at this. And when I started to get into it, it was like, oh my God, it's just unbelievable. But she also has Uranus, the moving Uranus, on her sun. In, is it the 7th house where she has the moon, which makes her very skilled at getting along with people. Venus in the 7th house in Taurus. That's delicious. But she has Uranus on it. And also, in her directions, she has the directed Saturn, second only in importance to Pluto in terms of the outer planets, and only fifth in importance to where the ascendant is and the sun is. We don't take into account the directed moon. But she has the directed Saturn opposite the moving Uranus, opposite her directed and progressed sun positions, opposite her natal Venus. I don't think this person is going to come through this situation well. I think this is going to be a profound shift in this person's life. Now, in terms of her directions, Pluto, which I mentioned before, is hugely important. That's just gone into Sagittarius. But guess what it is T-squaring? Her natal moon and also Mars, the North Node, Jupiter on a disassociate basis, because they're very late in Leo, but also squaring Jupiter and squaring, yes, Regulus. So this person who was born with Markle into the potential for honours and riches, I think has been profoundly affected by the fixed stars that are influencing her situation at the moment. I'm taking you back to the 8:12 p.m. natal chart. So there we are, Regulus on Mars, the North Node in Leo, potentially in the 10th house, squaring up at the moment. So if we go to the progress chart for this time, you'll see it more clearly. So there it is, 25 degrees in a T-square with Uranus at opposite Uranus. It was opposite Uranus when she was born. But what's happened is it's this moving moon position. And even if we take the 12 midday chart, the moon just moves back to 24 degrees. So it's still conjunct the North Node and the progressed Mars. And it's still conjunct Regulus, forging that immense T-square, fixed T-square. If you want to bring in the South Node, we've got a cardinal fixed cross. This person is not going to emerge well from this situation. This is a complete new beginning in her life. And when the moon moves in 2 months' time into the sign of Virgo, it's going to pick up with Jupiter, which can be delicious, but then over the next months, it's going to be forging a trine with the move in Uranus fairly soon. But I just think that she will probably find a new way of being. I think the way it's been over the last 2.5 years, where she's had this huge prominence, apparently this huge influence, I think it is at an end in that format. It's been a real pleasure joining me. Thank you so much. If you'd like to have a one-to-one with me, please check out my testimonials beneath this video. It's such an honour to work with clients. And also, if you're learning more about astrology and would like to ascend above your zodiac sign and embrace serious astrology like this, please see my very affordable personal horoscope reports below. There's an offer of 30% off where you can get a year's forecast and a character analysis, which will just absolutely amaze you if you don't really know anything other than your zodiac sign. But for now, it's been a real pleasure. Take care, stay safe, and goodbye.